Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists with me, Jackson White.
And me, Gavin Cook.
And this evening, we've got a real treat on the show. So this is one of my Clash of the Titans adversaries. It's Simone Blood. So Simon is a karate practitioner, a kickboxing practitioner, and a K1 practitioner. He holds numerous titles for full contact, continuous sparring, and point stop. So I was cruising the Facebook only the other night and come across Simon's profile and reached out to see if we can get him on the show so we could let some of our listeners how good it felt to kick my butt on the last Clash of the Titans. Welcome, Simon.
Hey, Jackson. I hope you're well, mate.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming on the show, Simon.
Very much, Gavin.
Okay, listen. So I'm gonna kick off with the first question then. So the first question that we always ask our guests really is just tell us a little bit about your early life growing up. You know, what first got you into martial arts, your schooling, you know, what sort of childhood you had, and I suppose what sort of formed you as a child, really.
Right. Well, quite a shy kid. Got bullied a little bit, and my dad he was into karate and martial arts. Obviously, the Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude Van Damme films that kind of got me hooked. I first went to a gym at 10 years old. It was my local karate gym. I stayed with that for about 3 years, and then I went to an event called the Kumite, which was the top 30 points fighters. And I met a guy there called Shabir Akhtar, who used to be one of the TAGB guys.
Yeah.
I
Got talking to Shabir Akhtar, and I joined Shabir Akhtar, and I stayed with Shabir Akhtar with the TAGB for the same for about 3 years, and then me and Shab it was a good relationship, and then Shab moved more into the business side of it. He set his own gym up and stuff, and I wanted to compete, and he was busy setting his business up and stuff. So I kind of left Shab and moved on to kickboxing.
What sort of age were you when you first got into it, Simon? What sort of age?
I was 10 when I first walked into a gym.
Okay.
10 I left Shab when I was it had been about 18, something like that, and I moved on to kickboxing at about 18 years old.
Okay. Would you put your awesome kicking skills down to your old Taekwondo roots?
Out of everybody, I've trained with quite a lot of people. I've in the martial arts game. Shab, 100%, hand on heart. Shab is the one what taught me the moves that I am today. To be honest, the kicking ability. Even though I've come from a karate, kickboxing, K1. My roots are Taekwondo, 100%. If anybody sees me fight, anybody looks on me on Facebook, Instagram, they can see that I'm a Taekwondo fighter. I'll kick, I will move, and what I always do. I've always loved the Taekwondo, the kicking aspect of it.
Yeah, I think you never lose that stance either, do you? You know, when you watch. I mean, we had people like we had Mark Weir on the other day, and obviously he's a UFC fighter, but he's again, you know, he started off in the Taekwondo realm, and he has that sideward facing stance still. You know what I mean? Kicking off the front leg, leading off the front leg. You never lose it, do you?
It's like riding a bike. It's something. Even now, I'll spar with guys, and I'll try and spar their style, and there's still little bits, like you say, with the sideward stance, and there's still little bits what never leave you, and you always seem to fall back on them, on the bits, and the bits that I fall back on is always my Taekwondo, 100%.
Okay, just taking you back a little bit then. So you mentioned you started off in your karate club. So how did you get involved in that club? Was it your dad that took you along?
What took me along? Because I was quite shy as a kid. And he kind of try and get me out of my shell a bit, try and get me a bit more confidence, get me confidence up. So he took me over to a local karate club, and at the time, my dad knew the guy who was running the karate club. He was a friend of my dad's when my dad was younger. So he kind of took me over there to try and get a bit of confidence, and obviously learn how to defend myself and things like that. So
Sure. So what you know, we always ask our guests this, and a lot of them, I'd say probably about 50%, when they first get there, they don't know what to expect. What was it like for you in that club? Is it, you know, lots of drills? Was the instructor? How was the instructor? What was that like?
the instructor was great. It was really good. It was just, I think, just actually getting through the doors for the first time and breaking that ice and just getting into that environment and getting used to it. I think once I got used to that environment, and then you kind of get friendly with other people who are training there, it kind of relaxes you and you get into the zone. And I used to get so much of a buzz from it, from going and training, and you just feel on top of the world once you've done a decent training session, and that's how I used to feel. It just made me feel great. So
especially in them days, because you're going back 30 odd years, you know, 32 years or whatever, and gyms were very different from what they are these days. When you walk in the gym these days, everything's nice and clean, especially with the COVID, obviously, but everything's nice and sparkly, you know, and you've got nice posh mats, and you've got these, where, you know, the reality for us lot, when we grew up, you know, we're all sort of in our 40s, it was just a concrete floor and blood on the door handle, and, you know, and maybe, you know, the remnants of someone's nose who's just been smashed up on the concrete the night before.
100%. There was that smell. I mean, I can remember my wife now, she still says it when I've been to the gym. You come back from the gym, and I can always tell, she always got that sweaty smell, you know, there's a smell about the gym, you know, when you've been and trained in there.
Yeah. Well, that's the sweat and the feet, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sweat and the feet on the floor.
Especially when you had to share, when you used to share sparring equipment. You know what I mean? You always used to get, you know, you used to have some big sweaty guy, and he passes you the pads after. It's just like, oh man, yeah, it's pretty gross, isn't it?
You can't get away with that now. So, what grade did you get up to in your first karate school then, Simon?
I got to black belt at karate.
Okay.
Stayed that until I got to black belt, and then from there on, I moved on to Taekwondo, and met Shabir Akhtar and stayed with Shab, and Taekwondo were good days. But I was, you know, once I started, I just instantly got the competition bug, and I wanted to compete every weekend. Whenever there was a tournament, I wanted to be in that tournament. I wasn't bothered about grading. I wasn't bothered about the patterns and yours. I just wanted to get the gloves on, the feet pads, and I just wanted to go and compete. And that's all what was in my mind, and I wanted to compete.
So it sounds very much like myself and Jackie's upbringing. I mean, we said this before a few times on the podcast, but we used to just buy the old Combat magazines. Remember Combat and Martial Art Illustrated? And then on the back, there always used to be a list of all the regional competitions that used to be in that area. And we used to literally just go and jump on the bus, turn up at some school hall, you know, pay our $5, and that was our Sunday every week.
Yeah.
You know, so good.
So, right,
good days.
Talk us through your first competition then. When was that, Simon?
My first competition was when I'd been about 11 years old, and it was the AMA Nationals, which were a traditional karate competition. And I got beat first round, and first when I stepped on that mat, I was so scared, so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. But as soon as they said fight, it was just that buzz and that adrenaline, what you get, and there's people cheering, people shouting, and even though I lost, I just felt so good afterwards, and I felt so proud and so good about myself. And I just got the buzz from first stepping on the mat. That's all I wanted to do, was just compete and enter different competitions and test myself and see what ability see what level I was at.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people we speak to. I mean, we've had some of the, I think, UK's best fighters from numerous generations, and they have a similar story. First competition, you know, they're so tied up with all the emotion, the adrenaline, the fighting bit just escapes them. You know, and someone with a little bit of experience gets on there and does the business. I think we've had very few people that have said they've got on the mat and they've won their first bout. But you've got to get past that hurdle, haven't you?
Then about 4 competitions before I even got in the medals. And I had that drive, and I said, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. It's not beating me. It's not going to win me. I'm going to keep going until till I succeed. And then once I started finishing in the top 3, it kind of just come natural. And I don't know, such as yourself, Jackson, when you are competing, you'll have walked into a competition, and I forget this all the time, and you know if you've won that competition before you've even put your gloves on. Because there'll be people in your category, and you'll have thought, I fought him before, I beat him, I beat that guy, I beat this guy, I beat that guy. And it got to the point where I used to enter tournaments, and I used to know whether I'd won tournaments before I even put a glove on anything like that.
No, it's true. It's true. I think you get that air of confidence as well, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like I said,
I've got to say though, that it let me down once. I remember, I think it was 2010. No, 2010, 2013 maybe. I'd just got put into the British squad, and I'd won the light heavyweight division all that year. So I won the Welsh, I won the English, I won the British. I thought, right, I'm nailed on to win this. And the guy I had in the first round, well, we shouldn't have met in the first round, and another England teammate. And he buzzed me. First thing he did, he just reverse punched me, caught me right splatting on the nose. Nose went everywhere, totally buzzed my head. And that was it. I was on the back foot the whole fight and lost. And I'd beaten him in every final that year, and I thought it was nailed on. And that one bit of confidence. So yeah, absolutely devastated. So yeah, I try not to take that too much for granted. Well, I didn't take it too much for granted when I was competing. You know, because you get it, don't you? People can come out of the blue, people that you've never seen before. You think, oh, he's a bit new, and then all of a sudden, they come out so unorthodox. You struggle to deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It was good. On the other hand, though, it was good for Jay because it did his confidence so.
Oh, he went on to win it, didn't he?
He went on to win it. Yeah, he went. Yeah, he must have had about 10 fights that day. And won the worlds, didn't he?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So, how did you find it different from your karate competing to competing in the Taekwondo arena?
Fighting in karate, it was a lot of reverse punching. In competitions, they tended to favour the hand techniques more than the kicking techniques. And for me, I was always a kicker. So I was fighting people, I was kicking, but the reverse punch was always a stronger technique, and I used to get scored against with the reverse punch, even though my kick was landing, because it wasn't the stronger technique. The reverse punch, they were getting the call every time on the reverse punch. So when I moved on to Taekwondo, it just totally suited me down to the ground. But with TAGB, I entered the North of England TAGB, I entered the English TAGB, but I only entered them as yellow and green belt, because from blue belt you move on to continuous in TAGB.
That's it, yeah.
Right, yeah.
I entered as the TAGB tournaments. What I entered, I did have some success at the TAGB tournaments, but it was only point stop. I only fought on TAGB point stop. I never fought under TAGB as light continuous, because I never got that grade. Never got to blue belt where I had to do that. So
right, okay.
Yeah. There's certainly some fierce competitors, especially in those days on the TAGB circuit.
Yeah, I can remember watching such as being a kid, and I was there and watching Shab in the heavyweights. There was Jackson's dad. There was Tariq Atbell, who was brilliant. He was a good friend of Shab. There was Caesars, Tony and Steve Caesar, them guys, and Joseph Shrimbury from Wales.
Yes, yeah.
Guys, I can remember watching these kids and thinking, wow, these kids are unreal. Really were some brilliant fighters.
It's when you see those people that you think, well, actually, you can be as good as those, and I suppose that's what spurred you on to continue training.
Definitely, yeah. And I got that kind of obsession where I used to just sit mat side and just watch what they were doing, and just pick different little tips up, different techniques, how they were throwing them, how they were setting them up, how they were scoring with them, and the technique where you keep your leg up and you keep kicking, I don't know what your guys call it. You call it the tornado kick, where you just keep kicking as if your leading leg coming forward.
Hopping side kick, just keep it up there, yeah.
And I love that technique. And on point stop, I used to get my chamber, my leading leg up, and just keep flicking that leg out, and it works. It's just an amazing technique, and I got that from TAGB, and that is a technique like we were going back to earlier, what has just stuck with me. And when I get in hard times or when I'm fighting, that technique will come out, and I'll get my chamber and I'll start kicking it to get me distance and stuff. But I picked a lot of stuff up just by watching different fighters and how they fought and how they won and what they did to win.
Yeah,
Sure.
I've always tried to use that front leg side. The only problem is for me, my chamber is never high enough, so I tend to kick people in the nuts quite easily, as Jackson's found out plenty of time.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that, Simon. So your flexibility, because I know when I fought you in the clash, and it was quite hard a lot of the time to get past your front leg chamber. Is that something that comes naturally? Did that come naturally to you, or did you have to really work on that flexibility side?
Like I say, Shabby Akhtar was brilliant for me. He just took me under his wing and he just drilled me on everything. And like I say, I just used to watch everybody. I used to watch the TAGB fighters, how they mastered that, and how I could score with that technique. And I just used to just train it and master it and just try my best to get it as perfected as I could. And like I say, it stuck with me forever. But thing with the clash, when I was with the clash, I was originally with TAGB, and I was seeing how the other guys were falling short because the TAGB guys are just outclassing them. They were just out kicking them. They were out moving them. And I thought, when it was my turn to get up, I'm going to try something a bit different, because I thought the TAGB guys are expecting us to stand there and try and outbox them. And
Yeah,
you know yourself,
we found a lot of that. They wanted to fight.
Yeah, you know yourself.
Rather than,
the legs are what your arms are. So you guys were just kicking us to bits. You were just basically kicking us to bits. So I thought, when I get up to fight my fight, I'm going to fight my fight like a TAGB fighter. So it's a TAGB fighter versus a TAGB fighter with the kicks. I'm not going to fight him how he's expecting me to fight. So I kind of went in with that different sort of attitude of how to go ahead.
So you were with the Warriors, weren't you, Simon? Is that right?
To be honest, I wasn't supposed to be fighting that day. The kid what dropped out. There was a kid who had he was a cage fighter, believe it or not, and he had a cage fight the week before and broke his ribs, so he couldn't fight. So I went to watch my teammate, a young lad called Keenan Dixon, who fought lightweight.
Yeah.
I went to support him, and Tony Sykes, who was the man who put the Warriors together, he approached me and says, "What, would you do me a big favour?" I says, "Yeah. What would you want me to do?" He says, "I want to."
This double can't get your bout going. You're going to fight.
Yeah, this is how it, honest to God, Jackson. This is how it happened. And he says to me, he says, "Would you fight for me?" I says, "Well, I ain't got no kit." He says, "Well, the guy, he's got his kit here." He says, "You can use his kit if you want." He says, "But he's broke his ribs and he can't fight." So it was me and Mark Worth. One of us had to fight you, and one of us had to fight Warren Vice. So they said to me, "Would you want to fight?" I says, I'll fight anybody. I said, I'll fight anybody. So Mark Worth says, "Well, I'll fight Warren Vice." So I says, "Well, I'll fight Jackson then, yeah, whatever." So that's how it come down.
Okay, good. Yeah, you know, sometimes that's the best way, isn't it? If you don't know you're fighting, or you haven't got time to prepare for it or worry about it, get your kit on, you're fighting. Okay, yeah, and then off you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's really interesting because we in that, for that particular competition, we had quite a big squad, and we knew we were in the squad, but no one was named to fight until actually we weighed in. It's like, right, you're fighting light heavy. I mean, I actually thought I was fighting middleweight, so I was down at 76 kilos, and I said to the coach, "Oh, well, I thought I was fighting middle." He's like, "No, we've got 2 middle. Yeah, you're going in at light heavy. Yeah, no big deal to me." But again, we didn't know who was selected until that weigh-in, which was always good.
I thought
as a youth.
No, Jackson, I thought you were telling me you wanted to fight Michael Page. Sure, that's what you were telling me just before. Just like, I hope Michael Page is fighting again. I think I can beat him.
Yeah, I don't think you heard that coming out of my mouth, Gavin. So the year, I think, 3 years before, three or 4 years before, we fought again, the TAGB squad, in the Clash of the Titans. And we fought against one of Michael Page's teams, and it was a toss-up between me and my mate who went out. And my mate went out, and he knocked him out in about 30 seconds, out cold.
Didn't
I was like,
Oliver run on the mat? Did some sort of disagreement, and did Dave Oliver run onto the mat to?
That's right, yeah. I think
it was showboating, wasn't he?
He's a showman, isn't he?
It was showboating.
Did a dance over him while he was sparked out. So Dave didn't like that, but yeah, I was just thinking, thank God that wasn't me. So yeah, you wouldn't have heard that coming out of my mouth. So just going back, Simon, on your, you're a renowned kicker and you love kicking. Did you have to work hard for your flexibility, or was that something that you had naturally?
I'd say I was always quite flexible as a kid, but like I just worked on it. I just constantly worked on it. I used to stretch. I used to be watch the films, watch people, Van Damme, and especially when Van Damme come out, everybody wanted to be like Jean-Claude Van Damme, everybody wanted to kicks, everybody wanted to be able to kick head high, and I just keep practicing constantly, practicing, kicking all the time, and it just, even now I still do it now. I mean, I'll train 4 times a week now, even at 42 years of age, and I'll still train and I still work on my kicks and I still work on that chamber, being able to hold my leg up and keep flicking it out and stuff like that. So,
did you ever move into to become like a martial arts teacher, or did you ever help out in your club? Is that an aspiration, or?
Yeah, WKA. I was one of the Great Britain coaches.
Okay.
And I help out at both the gyms where I train. I help the kids out, but I find once you go into teaching, I find that a lot of your time goes into the kids and the pupils, and you don't get much time for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think eventually I will go on to that, but at the time, I still feel I still like to train myself, and I still like to push myself and still see what I'm capable of. So I think probably next 5 years or so, I will probably go on to teaching and probably open my own gym. But at the minute, I still feel like I want to train myself, and I want to still push myself and see what's left in me. So
I think, so, yeah. I mean, you've got to be a bit selfish with your time sometimes, haven't you? Because once you start going down that route, as myself and Jackson both know, then you don't have time to train yourself properly. It's just impossible.
Yeah, that's so true. So moving on from your Taekwondo and getting onto the Taekwondo piece. So how did you get into the full contact kickboxing?
it was competitions. There was a guy I'm still with now called John Green, who he runs the WKO, World Kickboxing Organisation, and it was at tournaments. I used to see John regular at tournaments, and he lives in the next village from me. And we used to get talking and chatting and going on about different things and stuff. And he said, I'm opening my own gym. He says, do you want to come down? And we used to do Saturdays. It used to be Saturday mornings. There used to be quite a few people meet up, and it was just a sparring class on a Saturday mornings. And we used to do that for his tournaments. Go down there, and I kind of enjoyed it, and I kind of stuck with it. And it was really different because I didn't really have much boxing skill. I used to rely more on my kicks. It was more of a back fist reverse punch, and that's what I used to rely on. So going from the Taekwondo to the kickboxing, I kind of was okay at distance, but once it went close and I had to rely on the boxing, that's where I come kind of a bit unstuck, and I never really had that success. So John kind of struck me back a little bit and worked more on the boxing side. He says, it's pointless me working on your kicking because you can kick. I'll strip you back and I'll take you back, and we'll just go from the basics and build your boxing side up. So he kind of building my boxing side up on the kickboxing.
How did you find you had to adapt in terms of like your fighting stance and things like that? Did you find that it changed a lot?
My hands were kind of, instead of being here, my hands used to be more low, and this sort of stance, more of a side on sort of stance what we were on about, and it was. I tended to be a lot like hyperactive sort of fighter. For a full contact fighter, it's a lot more relaxed. Because I used to point fighting and stop-start. It's all about speed, getting in there, getting out. And I was wasting a lot of energy by blitzing and getting in, getting out. And then he said to me, he says, you've got to try and slow it down. He says, you're using too much energy. He says, you're kicking, you're punching. And so I kind of, like I said, went back and stripped me back and with my basics and my boxing, left me kicking alone. And it made me a totally better fighter. But I find points fighting is a lot harder than kickboxing. I find kickboxing is a lot more relaxed.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah, well, it's like I say, it's changing your style, isn't it? And maybe not using your legs as much to try and preserve that energy. Because if you think, certainly when you look at TAGB fighters, even now, there is a lot of wasted energy. You know, we lift that leg up and we're like, bam, bam, bam. We might do 5 or 6 high kicks before we've even come anywhere close to closing the distance with your opponent. And if you're in the ring and maybe in a 5-minute round or whatever, you know, a 3-minute round, you've got to preserve that energy, haven't you? You can't afford to be wasting.
I think another side of it, there are a few people that have made that good transition from being a good light contact, light continuous fighter to a full contact fighter, but not that many, because it's a different game, isn't it? You're looking for totally different things. Where in the semi-contact, you're looking for points. You're not looking to knock your opponent out. Where actually, when you pick your leg up in a full contact bout, you want to hurt them with it. If you want to hurt them, or you want to knock them out with it straight away. So it's a different method of fighting, which you've got to change your style and technique to adapt to.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. It's like I say, I was really hyperactive when I first started doing full contact. I was wanting to get in there and I was wasting a lot of energy too soon instead of sitting back and waiting for, like you said, the power shots. It were more flicky all the time instead of waiting for the power shot. And I think that just took time. It just took time. It's for the first year or so, I was still in my points fighting, still in my light contact. It took me a couple of years to try and get that full contact basis, to slow it down and be more of a flat-footed sort of fighter instead of on my toes, moving, skipping around, so I can get that flat foot and generate that power for that knockout shot.
So in all of the different martial arts you've done, so you've done your karate, you've done your taekwondo, you've done your kickboxing and K1. What would you say your most sort of memorable sort of fights and most memorable title is?
I'd say points fighting and light contact. I didn't really have that many full contact fights. I only had about 4 full contact fights, and I won 3 and lost 1. But points fighting for me, it's just to look at it. If you get 2 good points fighters who can do that, it looks so good. It's brilliant. It flows. It looks so good. And I think you were probably winning the Combat World Open. I fought on there and I won that. And that was a big achievement. And then I also won the EMA British Open in points and light continuous on that day, and that was another big one for me. I felt proud on that one.
I think, I mean, certainly, I mean, the kickboxers have got it for their point sparring, haven't they? Their point fighting. I mean, we do a lot of point stuff within the TAGB, and there's some really good points fighters in there. But when you see, and actually when you compete against some of the kickboxing point fighters, head body, bam, bam. They're just on you like lightning, aren't they? But they're training for that all the time. Me and Jackson, we entered. What was that competition that Judgment Day?
Wacko.
Judgment Day, wasn't it?
Wacko,
Judgment Day in Sheffield, and we entered the light continuous, and we did the points, and we just got battered in those points, didn't we? Those some of them young kids in there, not battered physically, but battered the speed that they were on you. So what's next then? What's next for Simone Blood?
Next for me is to just try and keep healthy, keep training, helping younger generation, up and coming fighters, trying to help them as much as I can. Just trying to keep busy, just trying to keep busy and doing as much as I can. So
okay. So you've been training most of your life. You are a martial arts man, aren't you? That's you. Some people, dip in and out of martial arts. Like me and Gavin, we're cut from the same cloth. Dads are involved in it. We've been involved in it from an early age, and we're still doing it now. So, we are martial artists. What over the years has motivated you to stay in martial arts? Because we see, you see a lot of people, they come into martial arts and they duck out, and then they might come back, but it's never the same. But when you're in it constantly.
I think to me, and a lot of people in martial arts, it's kind of a family. It's kind of a big family. And I actually, as much as I enjoy the martial arts, I enjoy going down and seeing them people and them kids and them guys and having a chat and talking about different things. And it is just like one big martial arts family. And I just get a buzz out of every aspect of the martial arts. Just gives me a buzz. I just really enjoy it. Really do enjoy it. And I think it's kind of, because I've done it from such a young age, it's kind of bred into me now. It's all I know. It's all I've got. It's all I know. It's all I know what to do. Getting up and training. That's what's in my body. That's all my body knows what to do. So
yeah, no, that's fair enough. I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can as well, can't you, Gavin?
Yeah, and you talk about the family. It's almost that mutual respect that you have with other martial artists that you meet, isn't it? You can meet a martial artist from any discipline, whether it's judo or or kickboxing or whatever. And when you like I say, we've never met before, Simon, but you know, the conversation flows because you understand what it's about. You understand what it means to be a martial artist when you've been doing it 30, 40 years. You know, you've been through that blood, sweat, and tears, and you have that mutual respect, I think.
Yeah, there's plenty of that. So for the years that you've been competing, who would you say some of your most troublesome adversaries have been on the circuit? Is there someone that you've always been up against, and it's either he wins, you win, or someone that you thought, Jesus Christ, I hope I don't meet him again?
Yeah, I suppose that Jackson White was a bit of a easy one, though, wasn't it? That was a bit of an easy one for you.
To be honest, since when I stopped with the TAGB, I kind of didn't know who was on top. And when I fought you, Jackson, I didn't realise how good you was until I YouTubed you. I looked at your videos and I was like, this guy's good. This guy is really, really good. And I didn't give you that respect I should have until I actually looked you up, seeing what you'd won and what you'd done. Because now you're a tough guy, and I enjoyed that fight. And it was a good 50-50, close fight, could have gone any way. I respect for that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Going back to people who would just say the worst adversaries, I wouldn't say I really have a adversary, because as fighters, as you know yourself, when you step on that mat, in my head, I don't care if I'm going against multiple world champion. In my head, I ain't losing that fight. I go on that mat, step in that mat, step on that in that ring, and I ain't losing. And that's kind of my mentality. But that's how I look at things. If I'm stepping on that mat, I'm stepping on to win. I ain't stepping on to lose or come second place and that. So I think, as having an adversary, I wouldn't really say I've got one, to be honest, because if I've lost fair and square, the better man. But it's always made me train harder and made me want it more. So when I get on that mat, there's no fear, there's nothing. I just want to get on there and I just want to show them what I can do. And if I lose, fair and square. But it's just something it's just my mentality. I'm in it to win it, sort of thing.
Yeah, no. You know what? I think for any fighter, any fighter will tell you, there's people you respect and you have mutual respect for. But if someone beats me, the thing I want to do, I want to fight them. I want a rematch straight away. I'll go home. I'll run harder. I'll train harder, and I'll do the extra bit that I think that my opponent's not going to do, just to make sure I've got the upper edge on fitness, on technique, and that single-minded mentality. My ex-wife, if you ask her, she'd be like, why are you going out running every morning? I'm like, I'm going to beat him. Yeah, but does it mean that much to you? It means everything. And then that is the single source of motivation. If someone beat me, I'd study their videos. I'd go to their gym where they train, their classes, just to spar with them in the class so I can get a feel of them. If it meant traveling for 2 hours to go up to Liverpool, that wouldn't bother me. I would do that. That was just a single motivation. So pretty much like yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, it's this. Yeah, I think as a fighter, I think you've got to have that mentality as a fighter. You cannot be thinking that I'm scared of this guy, or this guy's going to do this, this guy's going to do that. As a fighter, you've got to have that mentality where I'm in it to win it. I'm not bothered who I'm against. I'm like stepping on that mat, I'm stepping in that ring, and I'm going to do the business. And that's the mentality you've got to have as a fighter.
Yeah, I always remember your dad, Jackson. I remember saying to me when we was training, I was talking about competitions and stuff like that, and talk about getting nervous. And I remember saying, doesn't matter how many times, this is obviously coming from your dad, who's still competing in his 60s or whatever. And no matter how many times you've done it, you're still nervous. It's just you've got to remember that guy opposite you, no matter how big and fierce he is, he's nervous too, and he's just as scared as you. And you've got to remember, because it's how you conquer that. You've got to use that fear, haven't you? You've got to use that nerves to your advantage. And quite often it's more against the battle between for the fighter. It's more the battle between their body and their mind, isn't it? Conquering your mind.
Yeah. I think I don't know what you think, Simon. I think the fear changes. So certainly for me, when I first got back into Taekwondo, when I was 32, when I got back into it and started competing, I didn't fear anybody physically, and then I improved quite quickly because of that. My fear actually started coming when I thought, okay, so now people know who I am. They expect me to perform. I'm on the Great Britain team. Actually, if I go out there on that first round and someone makes a right monk of me, that was my fear. Not the fear of getting hurt. It was the fear of not performing or getting beat by an unknown person.
And letting
or
your
someone
team
that
down.
just mugs me on the day. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I think the fear morphs particularly as a fighter. The fear morphs, and I think if you look at some of the some of the great fighters in not just in martial arts but in boxing, that's their fear. Not losing. They're never afraid of the person in front of them. They're afraid of letting themselves down, letting their families down. So you've got to the way you approach fear, you have to adapt as the fear morphs into something else. Fear of your opponent, into fear of a failure, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's
No,
an interesting mindset. So probably almost ready to wrap up then, Simon. So another question we always ask our guests, and we always put a good clip on this one. So knowing what you know now about your martial arts and your fighting career, etc., what advice would you give to a younger you of about 18?
It's one of the best things. One of the best things to get into. Find a local gym. Go out, give it a go. It gets you off the streets. It keeps you fit. It gives you a good mindset. It gives you discipline. Gets you used to taking orders. There's more benefits. There's a lot of benefits from doing martial arts. Really, there's a lot of benefits. Like I said, keeps you fit, gives you discipline, gets you used to taking orders, and like I say, it's something that's been drilled into me from a young age, and I'll never ever stop doing it. I'll never ever stop doing it. Hopefully, I'll still be doing it in another 40 years' time if I'm still alive. But we'll see. I'll just keep doing it until as long as I can go. So.
And would you change anything that you've done in your career so far?
No. Only thing I'd change probably is to try and stick with TAGB a bit longer, because I enjoyed it. I really did. I should have stuck with TAGB a bit longer, because I was getting to a point where I was kind of, people were recognising me under TAGB. Kenny Walton. I used to speak to Kenny Walton, and Kenny Walton were like, "Yeah, you're really good for a colour belt." I was getting from such as like Kenny and stuff. So hopefully, if I'd have stuck that and I'd have got all work to my black belt, I probably could have been in TAGB British squad. So you never know.
Yeah. I think maybe the thing that let you down a little bit, Simon, was not remembering what the interpretation was of Dangun.
That's probably right. Yeah, I never used
to. Gavin still doesn't know that, mate. Don't worry.
It's the same as the patterns. I could never do the patterns. I could never ever do the patterns. Just used to throw me.
So tell me, what is the interpretation of Dangun? Come on, Simon. Come on, you can pull it out.
No idea. Sorry.
I think that can be. I think one of the downsides. Particularly if you're really just wanting to fight, having to go through that traditional part as well. They within the TAGB, it's their ethos to make you go through that whole package. Go through the grades, do the traditional side as well as the competition side. But you've certainly had an extraordinary fighting career, and you're still going. So I didn't retire until I was 44. That was my last my last real competitive bout on the mat, 44. And then I was just getting too old for it. I was running out of gas, going to the well too many times, I think. And that was my last fight at 44. Oh yeah, still training. I'm into my road cycling quite a bit and CrossFit at the moment, really. Just keeping it mixed up and a bit of weights. So yeah, I don't think I'd ever get down to 76 kilograms again.
I don't know, man.
That boat sailed, yeah, definitely. Hey Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. Really do appreciate taking the time out to come and talk to us and taking an interview with the motivated martial artist. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Good chatting to you. Take care.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode of the Motivated Martial Artist podcast. Don't forget to check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, the Motivated Martial Artist podcast.
And don't forget also the Motivated Martial Artist Instagram page.
So head along for some extra content, interviews and much more.
So until next week, it's bye from Jackson
and Gavin,
the Motivated Martial Artists.